Backyard Farmer. I'm Kim Todd, and I'll be your host for the next hour of Good Gardening. Unfortunately, this is a taped program, so we won't be taking your calls tonight. You can still send us those emails and pictures for a future show. That address is byf@unl.edu. We do need to know where you live. Give us as much information as you can so we can give you a good answer. Do not forget to check us out on our YouTube channel. Make sure you also like our Facebook fan page. So let's get started with questions. Kyle, excuse me, you have one picture on this first one. This comes to us from North Platte. She says this is the second year of an infestation of these bugs on her strawberries and raspberries. She's tried insecticidal soap and 7 dust, very few berries last year, none this year. What are they, and what can she use to get rid of them?
Yeah, they, excuse me, they are rose chafers. So these are little scarab beetles, and you know they feed on the leaves and sometimes flowers of several plants, especially roses. You know, I don't know if they would necessarily be directly affecting the fruit production on those, if there's maybe something else going on there. But as far as getting rid of them, you know, I think if it's a relatively small planting, kind of just picking them off like Japanese beetles can be pretty effective, throwing them in a bucket of soapy water. Otherwise, she was using 7. That actually should be effective for controlling them. So if you weren't getting, you know, seeing good control, it could just be that there were new beetles coming in after you treated. So that might be something that was going on, but they're getting close to kind of the end of their window. They should be, you know, kind of on their way out here in the next few weeks. So hopefully that not too much worse going forward. All
right, one picture on the next one. This one's comes to us from Crete. She's saying, why is her asparagus hard and curling itself up this spring?
Yeah, I would like to see a little bit more like see a better image of the whole plant here, but a few things can cause kind of the curling on asparagus, like asparagus beetles, and also cutworms can cause similar sort of injury. So I think this is probably actually from cutworms, based on, you know, the kind of the description and where it is there at the plant. So as the asparagus is getting larger, those cutworms, they'll feed around the base, but if they're not, you know, feeding all the way through and clipping that plant, you get damage on one side and not the other, and then it doesn't grow evenly, and they'll, you know, kind of end up curling or looking really weird. So I think that could be what's going on. For cutworms, really actually for controlling both, it's pretty, you know, you can use the same thing. So pyrethroids and spinosad is effective for both. If they are asparagus beetles, you should actually see the beetles on the plant. They're relatively conspicuous. But you know, both can be treated essentially the same way. And for cutworms, they like to hide during the day and then come out at night. So that might kind of be something to check for as well.
All right, and you have 2 pictures on the next one. This is a Harlan, Iowa viewer. Good-sized white fluffy blobs floating in the air and then landing. They're not cottonwood, they're sticky, and we don't know, do we?
Yeah, I really have no idea on this. This is a super interesting one. I'd like to know more. So, you know, some spiders, a lot of spiders, they disperse from their silk. They do something called ballooning. They like kind of let out these strands of silk, and then they'll blow all over the place. And so sometimes you can see like a bunch of silk covering a lawn or something from spiders doing that, but it doesn't look like this. Or even some woolly aphids will release filaments, but I've never seen that this big or look quite like this. So it's a mystery.
All right, fun. Okay, Jeff, 2 pictures here.
Okay.
This is a viewer from North Platte. You forgot to put down weed barrier in his garden. He's been using grass clippings, and he's calling these particular weeds coming like the Terminator. Is there any way to spot spray them, and what are they, and should he be able to plant a garden next year?
It's purslane, and I would suspect that they've tilled, raked, spread. They spread readily vegetatively, so My guess something like that's gone on, or they'll also produce a lot of seed. So if they've allowed a plant to flower and produce seed and they didn't clean it out of the garden. At this stage, if you have some of the bigger plants that have kind of a bigger crown and you're very careful, you can pull that weed and just remove it from the garden itself. If it is just a carpet of little new sprouts, you could try solarizing the area, so putting down clear plastic, pinning it down, and keeping it there for 3 to 5 weeks. That'll help kill everything in that area. You could use herbicides, and there are, looking for a product that would contain quinclorac in it would help kill that and help control it. The downside is that it's also dangerous for any other plant that you have in the garden. So you're going to want to make sure that whatever you purchase is labeled to be used around some of your garden plants. So typically I don't want to use herbicides in my vegetable garden. So I think I would look at pulling, doing some solarization, making sure that I'm not tilling and raking and moving that around.
All right. One picture on the next one. This comes to us from Pender. She thinks this is mare's tail. She's pulled it up every year. It grows back. What is it?
Well, I would agree. Horsetail, mare's tail, kind of goes by the common name. It's an annual, so it's probably reseeding itself. And, it's not difficult to get rid of. It's another plant, just like the purslane. You don't want it to go to seed. I know Rock says that 10 times every week he's on. Don't let the weed go to seed. Don't let it flower. And this is another one that people tend to let it go, thinking it's something nice, and it's not. It can be pretty prolific once it gets established. You can pull it, especially with the conditions we have right now with soil conditions. It's fairly easy to pull. You want to get as much of the root system as possible. And you may have to pull it multiple times, but I would continue to do that versus letting it go to seed and letting it get bigger.
All right. And one picture on the next one. This is a Lincoln viewer. She wants alternatives to pesticides. She's seeing something that's a 10% vinegar solution. What do we think about vinegar as a weed solution?
I guess back to the mare's tail real quick. So it's typically they're resistant to Roundup, or to glyphosate. So if you're using that and wondering why it's not dying, it's because they're finding that as a problem. So as far as the vinegar solutions, they'll kill the tissue of the plant that you're spraying. It may not translocate through the plant. You'd have to do multiple applications. If you're concerned about using pesticides, there are some cultural things you can do that we all should be doing in our gardens, versus worrying about using a product like this that is not probably as assured of a good result as you would like. So.
All right. Kyle, you have 2 sets of pictures and then 2 sets of pictures, and they're all the same thing. And one set is from Scotts Bluff and the other is from Omaha.
Great, and I think that I brought some as well. And so these are a whole bunch of stinkhorns at various stages. And so right here we have kind of the mature, we kind of think of it as the adult, or it's kind of emerged out of the soil. And the top of it is kind of slimy and probably smells as well. Again, we're not inventive namers. That slimy, stinky portion, that's the spore mass, and will be attractive for insects to come and land on there and spread those spores around. Seeing a lot of stinkhorns right now. I've had multiple samples come into the clinic, and here we have a lot more of them. One of the interesting things about stinkhorns is they hatch from eggs, and so they as with all of our mushrooms, they are feeding on some sort of woody substrate down in the soil. But if you dig down, you'll actually find these eggs that are that are there. And so, you know, they're kind of soft, but they're also, I mean, they're not terribly soft, but a little bit spongy. Really, they can vary in size. You know, they can be 2 inches in diameter to maybe about 1 inch in diameter. And then if you cut them open, you will see a little baby stinkhorn inside of it, and they just grow and grow until it gets to the top of the soil. Nothing to worry about, just a fun thing.
All right. You have one more picture, and we don't know where he's from, but he says these are next to his big old elm. What are they?
These are some sort of cuprinus mushrooms. Common name is going to be inky caps, and so if you look on the underside of those, again, just a lot of kind of black ooze, and that's going to be the spores again. That black ooze is attractive to the insects. I actually have a whole bunch of it. One of these stinkhorn's eggs erupted on me, so my hands are covered in that. Thanks. So, you know, Scott, Jeff, enjoy. Yeah, but yeah, one of the interesting things about cuprinid mushrooms or the inky caps, you actually can use that ooze on the underside as ink if you want to. So you could write or dye some wool, do whatever you want.
All right, thanks. Scott, you have 2 pictures on this one, and you got it because this tree is so compromised. This is Omaha. It's Canada Red Cherry. And he's wondering, is this done for damage to the trunk? He's seen this with a lot of fruit trees and knows they don't have much life. What do we think about what's going on here?
With this particular tree, we are seeing the cracking at the base of the tree, and we're pretty sure that it's coming from the really nice, attractive raised bed that's put around the trunk. That's something that we never recommend, is to raise the soil level around the trunk. It could cause a lot of issues. It's going to cause the tree to decline. What they could do is either take that raised bed off, or they could just let the tree decline, chop it off, and then enjoy the bed.
All right, Scott, thanks. You have 1 picture on the next one. This is rural Sarpy County. 6 50-plus-year-old ash trees, all seemingly healthy except for one. They have been treated semi-annually for EAB. Any idea what's going on with the one, and is it potentially a goner?
We're going to need to see more. We just have this one photograph. It's concerning that this much of the canopy is starting to yellow. What you want to do is take a good look at the tree, look around at the trunk. Is there any damage? Has there been any construction around the tree, any trenching from fiber optic or whatnot? But work with the certified arborist to try to figure out what's going on, because it's alarming. They should be taking some action.
All right, Scott. 2 pictures on the next one. This is a Kearney viewer. They moved into a new home, beautiful sugar maple. They want hostas under it. She did take off the rock. She took out the weed block or the weed barrier, and then she found this, and it's yellowing on one side. Can she still plant hostas under here? What should she do?
They did a great job of taking that fabric off and taking that rock to take a look at the base of the tree. What you might want to do is, we have quite a few girdling roots around the trunk of the tree. Again, work with a certified arborist. There is some procedures to help take care of those roots. But right now, probably don't plant those hostas. Let's try to see if we can manage any of those roots before we go forward.
All right, thank you, Scott. Well, a couple of weeks ago, we heard from some garden center managers about what's trending. We returned to that topic as we talked to a few other folks from central Nebraska. They'll tell us some of the hot items they've been selling and offer some advice for these warm days of summer.
As far as on the landscape side of things, we're seeing a lot of interest in like hydrangeas. There's so many new varieties that come out each year. Those are real popular from that standpoint. There's a lot of other plants that do quite well, but it seems like they read a couple magazines and then they come in asking for those plants.
The annuals continue to be very strong. Perennials, things that come back every year on normal winters and normal summers. Perennials seem to be very strong. Edibles, the vegetables, the gardening items, small fruits. Fruit trees have been very strong for us the last 3 or 4 years. We do a lot of the apples, the pears, some of the peaches, cherries, plums. So anything that people can do in their own yards to produce their own food, their own fruit, to garden, know what's being sprayed on, what isn't being sprayed on. That seems to be what we're seeing the most trend in.
It seems like a lot of people are starting to maybe put some things in so they can harvest their own crops and their own food. We get away from maybe spending so much money at the store. Those are really, really popular. The vegetable side of things as well. The tomatoes, the peppers, people are just buying them right and left and trying to grow their own, and it's fun to help them, and those have been the big trends. Mother Nature's dealt us a lot of fun things type situation for this spring, but the big thing that I see happening a lot is people are just educated. They're coming in, they're learning about things before they get to our location, and then they're asking those questions, and then it's fun for us to help them. But our customers are really becoming more and more educated on what they're looking for and the areas that they're trying to make themselves look pretty in their landscape.
As far as weather goes, what a difference a year makes. Last year we were at 4 inches of rain at this point. This year we're at about 13 or 14, so much more of a normal year. Last year we really pushed the watering on newly planted landscapes and windbreaks. This year we do the same, but we don't want to overwater things, especially our windbreaks. You can overwater evergreens probably easier than you can underwater them. So this year we're just saying common sense watering, mulch well. If it's wet underneath, probably don't have to water it. We have a lot of customers that are running sprinklers and watering both, and that isn't necessarily what we want to do. So check the plant first, check the ground first, and then kind of make a decision from there.
Well, there's good and bad with all the rains that we've had. A lot of plants are getting overwatered because of the rains and the drainage and that. We're telling them to just hold back on the water, and if you get lots of rains, but then keep an eye on it every day. Plants need a little help every so often, and if you give them too much moisture, they suffer if they don't get enough, especially now it's summertime, the warm temperature. So our advice to them is, watch, learn, see what your plant, listen to your plant. If it starts to wilt, it's going to tell you that it needs moisture. So our big thing is pay attention to your plants and walk your garden, walk your landscape every day.
A common theme between those managers is water management, and it is as simple as knowing your plants, understanding how much water they need to thrive, just like people. How much water do you need? All right, Kyle, 2 pictures on the first one. Burning bush, leafed out, look good, but now the leaves look like they have insects or a disease. She is south of Hickman.
Yeah, it looks like pretty characteristic spider mite injury. And 2-spotted spider mites can be a problem on euonymus. So for these, they really like hot and dry conditions. So definitely something to kind of try to get on top of, because it can get worse as we start getting into July and it gets hot and dry, right? So because of that, one thing that can be pretty effective is giving them just a really good hose down with with the hose, spray them with water. Do that a few times a week. That will help sort of, it's not going to eliminate the spider mites there, but it can help keep that population in check. Also, insecticidal soaps and horticultural oil can be used and can be pretty effective against all life stages. Again, something you're probably going to have to do multiple applications of. It's not going to get them in one shot, but I generally would recommend avoiding, sort of the broad spectrum insecticides for spider mites. Oftentimes makes it worse. So something like an insecticidal soap is pretty good.
All right, thanks, Kyle. 2 pictures on the next one. This is a Lincoln viewer. She's wondering what kind of insects is eating holes in her tomato plant leaves, and it's mostly on the lower levels, and she wants an organic solution here.
Yeah, it looks like flea beetle injury here. They cause that, what's called like shot hole damage there. They chew these little holes in the leaves. So they, a lot of times in something like tomatoes, they're really only a problem for the really small plants. So at this stage, it's probably not going to cause too much harm to the plant. So, for organic solutions, if you're looking for like an actual treatment, spinosad is an organic product that is pretty effective for flea beetles. So if you're wanting to spray, that's what I would go with. Otherwise, you can try something like row covers, at least when it's smaller, that can kind of help keep those beetles out at first. But that's obviously not going to last forever.
All right, thanks, Kyle. One picture on the next one. This is a viewer who found a few tomatoes with a single hole, cut them in two, went to check, and when he returned, found this guy. Wonders if this insect is responsible.
So I don't think so. I would like to know more about the hole in the tomatoes, but this is a stink bug, and I'm pretty sure that this is a predatory stink bug. So it's an immature, it's a nymph, but this looks like one of the predatory nymphs to me. So it wouldn't have been responsible for that. It would have been a good guy out there. The stink bugs can feed on the tomato fruit, but their injury is going to kind of produce this off color, like kind of a white or pale color with irregular borders, and then like a small little black dot in the center, not necessarily a hole. So that makes me think maybe something more like a caterpillar is boring in, like a tomato fruit worm or something.
All right, thanks, Kyle. Jeff, one picture on the first one. Okay. This is a Plattsmouth viewer. He has rototilled an area in his yard and planted a wildflower mix. Got this. Of course, now he's wondering how to get rid of the weeds and the grasses without harming the flowers.
Yeah, that's tough.
The panel is laughing for all of you who are watching.
That's, I would say anytime you do something like this, a conversion of creating using native grasses or forbs or something, you're going to need to give it 3 good years. In the meantime, if you have an area that you feel is, let's say dandelions or crabgrass or something like that's really taking over, you can do some spot spraying carefully with like a glyphosate. Make sure it's just that you're not using anything that has a pre-emergent in it or any other sort of 3-way herbicide. So you could do that in the meantime, but it's going to be kind of weedy for a couple of years, just is.
All right, thanks, Jeff. 2 pictures on this one. He says this plant is 3 feet tall. It had yellow flowers that closed, and now it has beautiful dandelion puffballs. 2 pics. What is this? Is it something to keep or something to kill?
It depends on your sensibilities. So this is Western salsify, and it's a non-native plant, but it's kind of throughout the United States. It's not necessarily a problem usually. It does, as you can see, produce a lot of seed at one time. So you can keep it and not worry about it. And you'll probably get a few more popping up in the yard. You can pull it, it'll pull easily. Theoretically, it's root. If you pull it before it flowers, the root is edible, like all things. Like you can eat everything, and it might make you sick, but but this is supposed to be a good thing. So it's kind of up to you.
All right, and one picture on the next one. This is a Neola viewer, and he's got grasses that are in the middle of his crane's bill here. Is there something he can use to kill the grass and not the flowers?
Well, a couple things. Again, there's a variety of grass herbicides out there, grass be gone kind of things, and they have several different versions of it out there. You'd have to look at the label and make sure that your particular plants are listed on the label. So you could use something like that. You could, again, use like a glyphosate and pull the grass out and spray it that way. Or if it was me, I would just get down on my hands and knees and pull the grass plants out from underneath the plant and just kind of weed it that way.
All right, thanks, Jeff. 2 pics on the first one, Kyle. Okay. This is a viewer who has blueberries, or a blueberry plant. She thinks it's rust, doesn't quite match what she's found. It's only her second year. This is a sweetheart variety. The plant seems healthy. She's wondering, she doesn't stress over it. She's wondering, is this worth stressing over, and should she do something?
Well, I'm glad that she's not stressing. I don't think it's enough to stress over. It's not rust. There is a rust the blueberries get. There are a few other leaf spots. Anthracnose is one of them that produces lesions that are most similar to this, but not quite this. And so the other thing with blueberries is they have a lot of environmental issues as well. And so you can have basically sun scorch and some other problems that can cause similar types of lesions on blueberries. So I hate to say it, but I would need to see a sample in order to confirm that if it is a disease or if it's just one of the weird environmental things that blueberries tend to get.
All right, thanks, Kyle. 2 pictures on the next one. She is in Johnstown, Nebraska, which is Brown County. Wild plum and sand cherries, funny shaped, hollow, leather-like fruits.
And these are some beautiful pictures, but probably not the most happy to find on your plums or sand cherries. But this is plum pocket. Plum pocket it's a fungal disease. It tends not to be a major problem. You can have a lot of trees and only a few plums will be affected. But often it starts off as just a kind of a small blister on the fruit, and then that blister grows and kind of covers the entire fruit. But one of the coolest things about this disease is it can make the fruit be 10 times its normal size. Now it's going to be covered in fungi and mycelia, and you cut it open and it's hollow and kind of gross inside, so you won't eat it, but it will kind of make it look cooler. Now, as far as control, really nothing to worry about with these. If your tree has had issues with plum pox for multiple years in a row, then you would want to be thinking about some sort of broad spectrum fungicide, possibly like a lime sulfur product or chlorophyllonyl being applied prior to bud break. But that single application should help the trees for the rest of the year.
All right, and you have 3 picks on the next one. She found 1 clump of coneflowers with this condition. Looks like leaves have been shredded. She did find a worm. The picture on that was not great. And that's probably not the leafage thing. She's wondering, is this a virus? And she has lots of coneflowers. She's in Beatrice.
Yeah, and oddly enough, I actually had some coneflowers come into the clinic that looked very similar to this, and they were concerned about aster yellows. And it was kind of my big concern on this one as well. The aster yellows, we tend to think about seeing the issues on the flowers where we have multiple flower heads and things like that. But we can also have some leaf deformation and some strange coloration that can occur. But this one, it doesn't necessarily strike me as aster yellows. You did the right thing and you saw something not normal and removed it. I would just destroy that plant, but keep an eye out, and if you are seeing any other symptoms occur, then it would maybe be something to further explore.
All right, thanks, Kyle. Scott, 2 pictures on the first one. Unfortunately, this is a Blair viewer, severe thunderstorm, high winds, heavy rain, all the hail. The hollyhocks were just loaded, and many of the leaves got shredded. She's wondering, should she prune these all down to the ground or just take off? What should she do?
The best thing that they could do is go in and remove any of the broken or shattered stems, the worst offending. Try to leave as much of the plant intact so that way it's producing energy for the next year's plant. We don't want to cut it back down to the ground. They don't tend to like that too much. So try to keep as much upright, but clean up the plant to make it look a little bit better.
All right, and your next one, unfortunately, is west of Fort Calhoun. This is a 3-year-old crabapple, 30 minutes of golf ball sized tail. Time to start over on this one?
It depends on how much patience you might have. You can give the plant some time, give it a couple of years to see what it does. What we worry about when we see this type of injury is that we're going to see a lot of cankering.
Yeah.
That's going to cause some branch dieback, twig dieback. If the plant is special to you, you might want to keep it and try to keep it going, or you can take it out. It's completely up to you, but cankering is going to be an issue down the road.
All right, Scott, and one picture on this next one. This is a viewer who sprayed deer repellent around his climbing roses, and this is what happened. He's wondering if he cuts the tops off, will the roots survive? This is Council Bluffs.
I'll be interested to know what type of deer repellent. That's quite a bit of damage. The best thing to do is go ahead and cut it back down to the green. It should help stimulate new growth. We have a lot of growing season ahead of us. The plant should recover, and then mark that deer repellent not to use again.
All right, thanks, Scott. And right now it is time for the lightning round. We have lightning over our heads too, so we'll hope we get through this. All right, Scott, ready?
Ready.
We have a viewer who wants to know whether he can add soil to a 5 to 6 year old asparagus bed slowly to create a raised bed out of it.
That's a good question. Probably in the springtime as the plant's emerging. Right now, just leave it alone.
All right. How often should tomatoes be watered?
Right now, we're getting lots of rain, so stick your finger in the soil. Might be once a day, it might be every other day.
All right. This is a viewer who wonders whether Brussels sprouts that were planted on Memorial Day will be okay, or will they bolt in the heat?
It looks like some heat's going to be coming, so they're going to bolt.
All right. This is an Omaha viewer who said they planted a tree last fall and it was too shallow. Can he go ahead and fill in over the roots?
We typically don't recommend putting soil over the top of a root. You can put some mulch to help make it look better.
All right. We have a wind snapped a branch halfway through the trunk of a 2-inch tree. Should they paint, tape, or start over? This is a Blair viewer.
Again, it's up to them, patience, but they might want to start over.
All right. Thanks, Scott. Nice job. All right, Kyle. Ready?
Always.
Always. All right. This is a Lincoln viewer. They had black spot in their roses. They did treat early, but they're wondering if they should treat again, and if so, with what?
If you're starting to see it come back, and it's been a couple of weeks, yeah, you can treat again. Daconil, any of your common broad spectrum fungicides will work.
All right. We have an Albion viewer who has Roma tomatoes, and the plants are yellow and they're not growing. Should they start over or what?
Sure. It sounds like every other Roma tomato in the state. They're all yellow and stunted and curly, and so I don't know.
Okay. This is a viewer who has a newly purchased hydrangea, but noticed that it has black spots on the leaves. Should that be treated?
Depends how many black spots are on there. I probably wouldn't worry about it, though.
All right. Are we seeing any early blight or late blight or blights of tomatoes yet?
There is some early blight that I've been seeing, have not been seeing any late blight.
All right. We have a viewer who has seen the top of an elm flag. Could that be Dutch elm or?
It could be Dutch elm. It could be a lot of other things.
All right. Nice job. Okay.
Okay, here we go.
All right, Jeff. That was
Nice.
You can blame the viewers on these.
Okay.
Okay, sure. All right. You had a vinegar question. This viewer has actually wondered. They've made a concoction of vinegar plus Epsom salts or just salts. Is that a good idea for weed control?
No, it's not. I wouldn't use salts in general, so.
No. All right.
No.
This is a Papillion viewer who wonders whether they should use lime to amend the soil where a spruce was removed, and they want to seed where that spruce was.
I wouldn't worry about it. Again, to quote Rock again, our soil pH is an ocean, so that little bit of acid from the spruce isn't going to make any difference. So.
All right. This viewer said they needed a little bit of sod, so they got some rolls, but they laid it and then it hit 97 degrees. Will it root?
It might root, but they're going to need to water it, kind of like the tomato question. You have to water it maybe every day, every other day, but you have to keep watering it. So.
All right. This is a viewer who wonders if they cut pokeweed off at the ground level, will that kill it? They don't want to use chemicals.
No, it won't kill it. So it has a big taproot, especially if it was a large pokeweed. So I would get a spade and dig it up.
All right. Nice job. Okay. Other Kyle, you ready?
Ready.
Okay. This is a Lincoln viewer who wonders whether earwigs harm people or pets.
Nope, they're harmless.
All right. We have a viewer who has ants in their raised bed. This is a Carney viewer. They did find on a internet source that borax or diatomaceous earth would work. Yes or no?
Diatomaceous earth, probably not. Borax might help.
Okay. This is a viewer who found 15 earwigs in the water after she cleaned her lettuce, and she wonders what does the best job of killing those things before they get to the plants.
Ew. Pass.
Good pass. Good. So we have a viewer who says, what are those green clusters of something hanging in their ash trees, and should they be treated?
Nope, no need to treat. Those are just from a mite that cause those like gulls in the flowers, I believe, of the male ash. So.
All right. Nice job all. I think somebody won, but I'm not sure who. So you can all pat yourselves on the back.
It was a tie down on this end.
All right. Well, we've got some lovely colors bursting out of our garden. This is such an exciting time for our plants to start maturing. So let's take a minute to hear from Terry out in the Backyard Farmer Garden.
This week in the Backyard Farmer Garden, we are watching our garden grow. Still have a few warm season plants to get in, kind of putting off some of those squash because everybody knows I don't like those squash bugs. So I'm trying to plant them in between all of the generations so I have as few as possible in our garden. We're also admiring some of the colors that are really starting to pop out of our garden. We have some onions that are just about ready to pick. I kind of like them a little bit smaller for those great salads in the evening. So that's why we're picking them when they're a little bit smaller and not letting them grow. But we probably will leave a few just to get those big, huge sliced ones for our hamburgers on the grill. We also have our peas climbing up our new trellis. Probably have to be taking those down here soon now that it's getting hot, and we'll replace it maybe with some Malabar spinach to kind of crawl up our new trellis. Really liking that, even though it was a pain to put in. So stop by the Backyard Farmer Garden and check it out.
Once again, we're off to a great start, and it really is a wonderful time for you to visit us on East Campus. Right now, of course, it's time for Scott to tell us about the plants of the week.
This week we have two really fun perennials. The first one, this tall one with the purple flower, this is a bellflower called ladybills. Great looking purple flowers, lavender flowers. It is a bellflower that can spread through stolons. It's a slow creeper, so something that you can manage. And below it is we have a sedum, Angelina sedum. Has some great bright yellow flowers. It's not the easiest to get to bloom, and in the fall it does have a nice fall color. It does turn a orange, so two different types of plants to check out for your garden.
Great, thank you, Scott. All right, Kyle, two pictures on the first one here. This is a Carney viewer. They're wondering what is calling these weird galls on their swamp white oak, and what can they do about it?
Yeah, this is a really unusual one. It's probably, I think, noxious ocul, so that's named after the cynipid gall wasp, and there's not really anything you can do about it, essentially. If you find them really concentrated, in some like branches, you may be able to prune those out. They do overwinter in those gulls. And so, kind of pruning those out before next spring, that may help reduce numbers, but there's otherwise not really anything you can do.
All right, thank you, Kyle. 3 pictures on the next one. This comes to us from Bronson, Iowa. Beautiful weeping willow, but these weird, dark, elongated nodes. The tree is 35 feet tall, 10 years old, good conditions, northwest Iowa, dead branches. What are those things?
Yeah, these are oyster shell scales. So they're a hard scale, and they have a huge host range, but they do like willow. So, control for these, there's different populations that can have multiple generations. I think most here in Nebraska is just one. And so control for these is usually like going to be in May. That's when you would treat if you're going to, with like an insecticidal soap or something like that. Otherwise, you can also just scrub them off in the winter with like a sponge or something, remove them from the tree that way. But they are pretty tough to get rid of.
All right. You have 1 picture on the next one. This is a Skylar viewer. Found this about the size of a human hand, and she wants to know what it is.
I think it's a fishing spider. And so they're kind of associated with aquatic habitats and mostly eat aquatic insects, but some have been known to catch small fish, hence the name fishing spiders.
Oh my goodness. All right. Jeff, 3 pictures on the next one. This is a Denton viewer, several spots of poison ivy. One's vining up a tree, one's covering a small shrub. She's read that boiling water will kill poison ivy instead of using chemicals, and this one has actually been mowed, and there it goes up the tree again. So what do we think?
Poison ivy is tough to kill if you're not using the right product. You could pull the plants up and dig them up, so that means you're going to have to protect yourself extensively. There are some products out there that contain tricloper, and so they might be in a 3-way killer. They may be labeled as a poison ivy killer or something like that. And again, you'd want to carefully apply that. You're going to want to make sure you don't apply that to any shrub or tree or anything like that. But you'll probably want to rely on a good herbicide to take care of this.
Not boiling water.
Not boiling water.
All right. You have 1 picture on the next one. This is an interloper who is sharing root space with this hydrangea. Like good parents, he's worrying about its influence on the good plant. So should they transplant it or just get rid of it?
Well, it's really a weed. It's honeysuckle, and they should dig it up carefully around the hydrangea and get rid of it. So otherwise it'll flower or produce fruit, and you'll have hydrangea everywhere, which we have in a lot of our wild areas. So.
Honeysuckle. Yeah.
Or honeysuckle, yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
All righty. 1 picture on the next one. This is a Douglas County viewer. He planted 1 jalapeno. He got 2 plants. He's wondering, is it a mutant or is it a weed?
It looks like smartweed. So again, because it's close to the pepper, you can maybe carefully pull that out and see if you can get it out that way, that or just clip it off, and you may have to clip it off a couple times, but it'll overgrow the pepper and cause problems that way, so you need to get rid of it.
All right. Kyle, 2 pictures on this first one. So this is a papillion viewer. He's got 3 Japanese tree lilacs here, and branches are dying on the one in the middle, and then this is what he found. He's wondering, are these cool-looking lesions killing the branch, or?
Well, they are certainly cool. They are not killing the trees. However, they are a sign or a symptom that there is some other issues with this planting. So, I mean, generally, anytime we have a lot of fungal growth on a tree, that's really not a good thing. Wasn't able to completely confirm what these are from the picture. They really look a lot like giraffe spots, which is a common name of a type of fungus. The other one that that they might possibly be would be a little nest polypore, but regardless, very cool, but not harming the lilacs.
All right, I think we need to make a list of all the weird names that all of you have for all of your things.
There's some fun ones out there.
All right, 2 pictures on the next one. This is a Silver City, Iowa viewer. Hibiscus planted last year. The leaves are staying curled and not developing, but the plant is getting taller. 2 hibiscus, 2 different spots, both doing this, no herbicides and no other plants.
Interesting. The first question, I immediately thought herbicide, but if that's really not an option, the only other thing that would cause those sort of symptoms would be something viral. There's not a ton of research on viruses of hibiscus, and we would need to do some further testing of that, though.
All right, and 2 pictures on the next one. This is an Omaha viewer. Speaking of Roma tomatoes, it was growing great. Came out one day and it looked like this. Everything else looks great. What is going on?
Again, something that we would need some more testing for. There are a lot of reasons that tomatoes can have curled leaves. There are a lot of tomato viruses out there. This one reminds me of tomato bushy stunt virus. However, we would need to do some extra testing to confirm.
All right, Scott, 3 pictures on this one. This is a Carney viewer wondering what's going on with her geraniums. Several pots purchased from different nurseries. Leaf edges are yellowing and they're in Carney.
We've been really lucky. We've been getting a lot of moisture. We could be having a reaction to all the rain that we've had. It does look like a touch that could be a possible pathogen. Maybe, maybe not, but check out that potting mix. Make sure it has good drainage.
All right, 1 picture on the next one. This is a Dwight viewer. You get this one. She's wondering, is this zucchini infected with mosaic virus? It was fine yesterday, but it's got this. And is it mildew or is it supposed to do this?
The molting is normal. Some of our new cultivars of zucchini, this is typical. It doesn't look like mosaic virus.
All right, and 1 picture on the next one. She's got a cucumber in a garden bed looking sad, light in color. And what do we think here?
When we looked at the photo, the soil does appear to be really damp. We've had lots of moisture, so try to improve that drainage.
All right, thank you very much. Well, this time of year, we're going to start seeing some plants that have brown and orange spots. Most likely it's rust, and Kyle explains it can happen to just about any plant.
Pretty much any plant that we are growing, whether it is an annual plant or perennial, herbaceous or woody, we have some sort of rust fungus that can cause disease on that plant. And now I've often talked about how pathologists aren't very great namers. The way that we define a rust fungus is basically a fungus that causes rust-colored or orange to brown lesions on the leaf, and typically there may even be some raised pustules on the top or underside of the leaf. Now, rust fungi have a very, very complicated life cycle, including up to 5 different spore types. And some of these spore types can only survive on one host, while the other types need a second or an alternate host in order to cause infection. And so with one of our most common rust fungi, cedar apple rust, the main host of concern is going to be our pears, our crab apples, while the alternate host is going to be our junipers. Now, in order to control our rust, we can try to remove that alternate host. That's not always possible, but often a fungicide, a broad spectrum fungicide at the first sign of symptoms will be your best bet in controlling whatever rust fungi you have.
Thanks, Kyle, and of course, keep an eye out for that, and if you see it, it's too late. All right. We have a lot of announcements tonight of cool things going on. The Wachiska Audubon Tour, the Wild Side, Saturday, June 22nd in Lincoln. Our second one tonight is the Benson Garden Walk, Saturday, June 22nd, and we have a website for that one. Lancaster County Extension composting demonstration, also on Saturday. And then we are starting with Daylily Farm open houses in Bradshaw. So beautiful stuff in the gardening world. All right, Kyle, 1 pick on this one. This is an Omaha viewer. Found this on common milkweed, and there were several more. What is this guy, beneficial or a bad guy?
It's neutral. It's a red milkweed beetle, and they do feed on the milkweed, but they don't really hurt anything. So.
All righty, 2 picks on the next one. This is a Carney viewer. She's wondering what this winged pest is. She thinks it's eating the leaves on her knockout roses.
Yeah.
She's used 7 and neem, not together.
Well, that one isn't, but its babies are. So yeah, that looks like the adult of like a rose slug sawfly. So neem, that should be effective, but you have to make sure you're spraying the underside. Otherwise, you can hose them down with water to dislodge the larvae as well.
All right, thank you, Kyle. Jeff, 2 pictures on this one. This person has been diligently trying to establish buffalo grass for years in Lexington. It's creeping down the curb toward the street. They're wondering, can they cut those runners off and somehow root them into the bare spots?
It would be quite the process. I think they'd be better off taking plugs. So if the plugs are about 2 inches wide, 2.5 inches deep, they look like they have a good stand of buffalo grass and it's healthy. I think that would be a better option. They'd have more success.
And when would they take those plugs?
This would be the time to do it. Yeah, right. We want to do it this time of year.
All right. You have 1 picture on the next one. This is a person who's saying their company manages a commercial site. The building was built about 8 years ago, so the site was a construction zone. It's irrigated, but these dead or dying spots keep showing up. Cause and solution.
I'd look first at your irrigation system, make sure you have the heads nozzled correctly for the right amount of gallons so that you're getting enough irrigation on there. That'd be the first thing I would look at. That'd be the easy one. Then I would look at doing some sort of probing. Certainly on construction sites on campus, we'll find large items buried. So we've found sheets of metal, plywood, rock, that sort of thing. So I would, especially if that's been one of those things that shows up when it gets hot, I'd find a soil probe and see if you can go down a couple of feet and see what you're finding.
All right, I think we found bed springs at one point on one spot on
Okay,
campus.
not surprised.
All right, Kyle, you have an Underwood, Iowa viewer who said, why did this pepper plant variegate itself?
It felt like it. But it's variegation can happen for numerous causes. There can be some viruses. I don't think that's what's going on here, but variegation like this is some sort of mutation has occurred in the chlorophyll production area of those lower leaves. And the upper leaves are still were nice and green, so I wouldn't worry about it.
All right, 2 pictures on the next one. This is a Northeast Lincoln viewer. Cucumber is getting spots on the leaves. What is this disease and what can be done about it?
Yeah, so I think that this is angular leaf spot. This is actually a bacterial disease. It has based off of the halo, it has kind of a large yellow halo around there, which makes me think that it is more of a bacterial disease. Not a whole lot of great controls for our bacterial diseases aside from removing those infected leaves.
All right, Scott, we have about 60 seconds left and you've got a lot of questions. This Atlantic, Iowa viewer wants to know if we know what this lily is.
This is a double flowering Asiatic lily. I believe it is apricot fudge or apricot chocolate, something like it. Really fun.
All right, 1 picture on the next one, and we have a lot of oaks here. So Silver City, this one is doing this one with curling leaves, no herbicides. Your next one is a Blair viewer. Some are doing great, needs some advice. And your last one is North Platte, brown leaves. What in the world?
The first photograph, that is herbicide damage. When we see that cupping, that curling of the leaf, very common. Herbicides can vaporize really easy. That second one had looks like some herbicide damage, maybe some anthracnose, some water stress. Take a look at how you're managing it. And that last photograph, really not sure. It could be herbicide damage because it can go through the roots as much as it can go through the air. But it would be really nice to get a sample of that to send in to both of the Kyles so they could take a look at it.
And we have been seeing a decent amount of oak tatters as well.
All right, so lots of things in the oaks this year for the Kyles or somebody else.